All right. Good morning, everyone. I am going to go ahead and hand it over to Tina and Ben to kick us off this morning.
Ooh, that's a sudden handoff. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Ben Wolcott. I am the English Language Proficiency Assessment Specialist on the assessment team here at ODE. Joining me is my colleague, Tina Roberts, who is the Language Arts Specialist here at ODE. And our presentation to you today is about the new law, Access to Linguistic Inclusion. And I was just prior to being introduced, I was about to double check the agenda to see how much time we have for this topic. So Beth, could you remind me what pace we're going at here?
Yeah, 30 minutes.
Okay. Yep. So we will skate pretty quickly through some things because we want to make sure that there's time for questions and answers at the end. As a little bit of context setting and surrounding information to help you orient yourself to this presentation, what you're about to see, excuse me, what you're about to see is a publicly available overview slide deck. Tina and I are going to move through that at a fairly brisk pace, and we'll be using the scripts in that slide deck. So if you've already reviewed that deck, this will seem very familiar to you. This deck will serve as the base for a more extensive and more in-depth statewide webinar that's coming up. You may have seen an advertisement for that, an invitation to register. So these slides that you're about to see will be the core of that statewide webinar deck, but it will add more information and more specific scenarios. So why are we bringing this to you today? This new law opens some new flexibilities and new opportunities for course offerings and also for credit earning at the secondary level. Because of that, we think it's particularly important that counselors have a thorough understanding of the law, its intent, and what it does, because if somebody were to approach this law with an incomplete understanding and just, for example, they hear that more credits are available for students, and then we may end up with a situation where it's like a new source of credits has been found and it's time for a gold rush. Everybody run and get your credits. That's not the intent of the law. It's not a free-for-all or in the past I've said it's not a Hungry Hippos game to get more credits. Instead, the intent of the law is to take demonstrations of knowledge and skills that students are already doing in our schools because they are multilingual and honor those demonstrations of knowledge and skills. So for example, we have currently, let's say we have a monolingual English student who takes a world language Spanish class in high school. Our system officially recognizes that linguistic knowledge with credits in world language Spanish. But then let's say we have a student who begins with knowledge of the Spanish language and then learns English. Our system does not recognize that adding additional language, or didn't prior to the law. So student B was doing extra work or demonstrating extra knowledge and skills, which were not officially recognized by our system. Like maybe we gave that student an attaboy, or we do have some measures in place like the seal of biliteracy. But what Access to Linguistic Inclusion does is put other languages and English on more of an equal footing so that we are able to recognize student achievement across languages rather than creating an unequal playing field where some linguistic achievements are recognized and some are not. So at this point, I think it would be best to move into the slideshow so that you can see the concrete of what we're talking about rather than the abstract. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I will just, in a moment, I'm going to ask Beth to give me a thumbs up if she is able to see the title slide of our presentation. Okay. Okay, so here we have, Tina and I already introduced ourselves. So we're talking about access to linguistic inclusion, which is also known as House Bill 2056. Oh, I can hear that somebody is unmuted. If you're unmuted because you want to ask a question, then would you mind putting it in the chat? Otherwise, please mute yourself for the moment. Okay, so Tina, fair warning, I'm displaying the slide deck, so I can't see the scripts. I'm gonna make it all up from memory. Okay. So access to linguistic inclusion is part of a slate of equity bills that was passed in the 2021 legislative session. As I mentioned a moment ago, it was known as HB 2056, but we try not to use the numbers because people forget what the numbers mean, and the words are a little bit easier to remember. So this law is already in effect, which means everything that we're talking about today is applicable right now. The law does, the law changes a number of Oregon revised statutes, but those changes can be grouped into three main categories. Namely, it changes definitions for the content areas of language arts and world language. So it renames English language arts to language arts, and it updates the definition of what language arts means. It updates the definition for world language, and it also repealed a requirement that instruction be delivered in English, except for some narrow exceptions. So that now it is now legal to deliver instruction in languages other than English. As a very, very minor note, it also adds some definitions for a couple of very specific topics in social sciences, but those have no, those are just convenience definitions, so we won't be covering those today. So the new definitions in access to linguistic inclusion are written from the student point of view. So for example, the new definition of world language is based on a student's linguistic identity rather than what the school is offering. So the orientation of the law is to recognize student achievement. As I mentioned in my introduction, it's to honor the knowledge and skills that students have and are bringing to school. And it also creates new opportunities for students to demonstrate and receive recognition for those. And one of the opportunities that's probably going to have a large impact in many of your lives is the ability to, an expanded ability to offer credits. We want to emphasize that this new law opens opportunities, but it does not impose new requirements on anyone. So there are lots of new paths opened up for both students and schools to offer new types of courses, offer courses in new languages, to award credits for courses that maybe previously couldn't be awarded. But it does not change any content requirements. It doesn't change any standards. It doesn't change any assessment requirements. Schools are not required to retool their course offerings top to bottom or to rename things wholesale. Essentially, this is all opt-in. So diving into the content areas, here we see the new definition for language arts. This is taken from the text of the law. So language arts includes reading, writing, and other communications in any language, including English. One of the big impacts of this is that now, under this new definition, you could have a language arts course in a language other than English, like a Spanish language arts course. This definition applies to all grades K through 12, but of course, in grades K through 8, there's much less, there are no high school credits at stake there, essentially. So a large amount of attention has been focused on the secondary level because the impact has ripple effects there. So let me just move my Brady Bunch list of names here so I can see more of the slide. Okay, so to help districts sort through and district personnel sort through what this means, we've delineated what we call awarding and receiving criterion for credits. So when we're talking about credits, number one, you have to establish that the course actually can award that kind of credit. And then you want to make sure the student fits the definition in Access Linguistic Inclusion that would allow them to receive that kind of credit. That language is not present in the law, but we feel that it helps districts think through the impacts in an organized manner. So in this case, the awarding criterion, in order to award language arts credit, the course has to cover appropriate content described in Oregon's English language arts and literacy standards. So if you had for example, if you were proposing to offer a Spanish language arts course, most of those standards would apply unchanged, but there are occasional references to something English specific, like English usage and grammar. In that case, you would interpret it to according to the language of instruction or the language of the course is concerned with. So here we would have in a Spanish language arts course, if there were a reference to English usage and grammar, you would interpret that as Spanish usage and grammar. In the second bullet here, we note that there are a few courses where it may be possible to demonstrate that the student is, in fact, showing knowledge and skills, that the student is meeting language arts standards. So if we had a advanced ELD course where the student was doing a significant amount of reading advanced literature in English, doing English composition, doing research, making arguments and supporting those arguments with evidence, then it might be possible to demonstrate that that course satisfies language arts standards, and consequently, the student might be able to earn language arts credits for that course. We would add the caution that this is probably only possible in advanced ELD courses, because ELD and English language development and language arts are separate content areas with separate standards and separate goals. So it is not, a surface similarity is not enough to award a language arts credit. You would need to show that the student is receiving a commensurate experience in this English language development class that a monolingual English speaker or an English speaking peer would be receiving in an equivalent language arts course elsewhere in the building. So very likely for an advanced ELD course, you may be able to satisfy perhaps grade 9 language arts standards. But it would be, we do not believe that a beginning or intermediate ELD course would cover the ELA standards to sufficient depth, breadth, and complexity to award language arts credit. Likewise, a advanced world language class in most high school 4-year world language programs, a world language class simply does not rise to the level of covering material to be the equivalent of a language arts course in that language. So the example would be like, let's say you're in an AP French class. If we were to lift that AP French class out of its current school and place it in a high school in a French-speaking country, would it fit right in? Like, would it be the equivalent of a language arts class that they're taking there? Or if a native French speaker moved to Oregon and were to take this class, would they be receiving the same degree of, would they be receiving the same depth of content and doing the same rigor of work that they would in a literature and composition class in a French-speaking country? So again, this bar is quite high and would be difficult for a traditional four-year language art, or sorry, world language program in a secondary school to meet. So I see that there is a chat, but I'm purposefully not looking at the chat just yet until we get to the end, because I want to make sure that I get through the slides in a timely manner. And because I'm not reading script, I am being a little bit less efficient than normal. So I thank you all for your patience, and I'll be swapping over to Tina in just a couple of slides. Here we see the new definition for world language. Again, this is taken from the law. It includes sign language, heritage languages, and any language other than a student's primary language. So you see that that definition is based on the student's linguistic identity rather than what is being offered in the course. So the same language might be a world language for one student, but not a world language for another student. An easy example would be the English language for students who are monolingual English speakers from Oregon. English is very likely not a world language for them, but it would be a world language for somebody, let's say a new arriver from Japan, who is just now starting to learn English. English is a world language for that student. And just like the language arts, this definition applies in all grades K through 12, but because of its potential impact on credits, of course, a lot of the attention falls in the secondary level. So here we have, again, we see awarding criterion and receiving criterion. For language arts, the slide only had awarding criterion on it because everybody can receive language arts credit. If you can demonstrate the knowledge and skills, then you are eligible to receive language arts credit. For world language, the course needs to cover appropriate world language standards, and the focal language of the course needs to be a world language for you. So a monolingual English speaker in a traditional grade 9 language arts course, that student cannot get world language English credit for taking English language arts, because their English is not a world language for them. That's kind of common sense. Nobody has ever thought that anybody should get world language credit just for their language arts course. However, for this new arriver from Japan that I mentioned a moment ago, maybe that language arts course is sufficiently rigorous or sufficiently covers world language standards that they could be shown to be demonstrating mastery and skills of English as a world language in that course, in which case this student from Japan maybe could get world language credit for taking for completing a language arts course delivered in English. It would, of course, it would depend on being able to demonstrate that that student is showing the same amount of skills and the same kinds of skills that their peers would be demonstrating in, say, a world language Spanish course. So I know that I know that there's probably a lot of questions bubbling in people's heads, and I would encourage you to, if you're in danger of forgetting them, put them in the chat, and we will return to them at the end. I think at this point, I will turn it over to Tina. Tina, I don't remember if this is the exact slide that we're switching to, but this seems like a good break point. So
Yep, thanks, Ben. So access to linguistic inclusion does not modify any statutes regarding students with English learner status. Since students with English learner status are by definition multilingual, they are eligible to benefit from many of the expanded opportunities available under this law. However, neither current nor former English learner status is required to benefit from access to linguistic inclusion. Next, please. As mentioned earlier, the new definition of world language means that English may count as a world language for some students. When combined with the implementation definition of heritage languages, it is possible that all of a student's languages may count as world languages. The new definitions for language arts and world language will also help districts interpret international high school transcripts. Additional multilingual opportunities not listed on this slide include the potential for course offerings in a student's preferred language and more options for meeting high school diploma requirements. Next, please. Under current Oregon law, high school credit is linked to demonstration of knowledge and skills according to state adopted content standards, not seat time. Access to linguistic inclusion does not modify laws governing earning of high school credit in Oregon, but those laws may apply to existing courses differently based on the new definitions for language arts and world language. As mentioned earlier, the new world language definition is based on student linguistic identity. Access to linguistic inclusion guidance therefore defines both awarding and receiving criteria to help clarify which credit can be awarded to which students. The awarding criterion is based on course content and standards coverage. The receiving criterion is based on the new definitions for language arts and world language. Next, please. Access to linguistic inclusion makes no changes to existing rules governing teacher credentialing and licensure. The Teacher Standards and Practices Commission does not anticipate that any changes will be needed to teacher preparation programs or licensure procedures as a result of the law. The teacher licensure link on this slide leads to an ODE page with more information about courses and teacher credentialing. Next, please. Districts should enact policies and procedures which will ensure equitable implementation of new flexibilities under access to linguistic inclusion. Districts should be wary of any approach that treats the law as a way to simply provide students with more credits. The goal of access to linguistic inclusion is really to recognize knowledge and skills that students are already demonstrating through their rich linguistic identities. So decisions about high school credit should begin with those demonstrations of knowledge and skills. More credits, while a valid and valuable recognition of student achievement, do not in and of themselves prepare students for post-secondary next steps. Also, districts should be careful not to close off some opportunities while opening others. For example, some post-secondary plans may require credits in English language arts. Next, please. As mentioned earlier, access to linguistic inclusion relabels English language arts as language arts in multiple Oregon statutes. It would be easy to misinterpret this as an attempt to remove or reduce the role of English in Oregon's education system. This is a misunderstanding of both the intent and the effect of the law. While this label change does bring other languages onto a more equal footing with English, it should not be overinterpreted as a directive for wholesale removal of the word English wherever it occurs. In the vast majority of cases, the English tag in an English language arts course provides accurate and necessary information about course content. English language arts is an entirely appropriate description for courses which satisfy the English language arts standards via the study of literature, composition, and other communications in English. In contrast, the title Spanish language arts clearly conveys that the course is covering those same standards via study of literature, composition, and other communications in Spanish. Next, please. In the last slide, we discussed the label change from English language arts to language arts. Well, this creates the possibility that some students may satisfy graduation requirements with one or more language arts classes in a language other than English. It will not lead to widespread abandonment of the study of English language and literature. Federal accountability requirements regarding English language arts remain in place, as does the ELA summative test, which is the measurement instrument for those accountability requirements. Also, it's important to remember that a language arts course in a language other than English requires not only students with sufficient mastery to engage with grade level content in the target language, but also teachers with sufficient mastery to deliver grade level content in the target language. Next, please. Appropriate English instruction for students with English learner status is a federally guaranteed civil right. Access to linguistic inclusion makes no changes to federal English learner regulations. Assessment and accountability requirements for developing student English language proficiency remain in force. Districts now have the ability to recognize student mastery and achievement in languages other than English, but they must continue to fulfill their responsibility to help students gain the necessary English language proficiency to successfully engage with challenging grade level academic content in English. Next. Access to linguistic inclusion makes no changes to the number or content area of required high school credits for graduation. It provides students who are demonstrating mastery of Oregon's rigorous academic standards with additional options for satisfying those requirements, but they must meet all the same requirements to the same level of rigor that were in place prior to the new law. The only difference is that additional paths have become available for satisfying some of these requirements. Next. It is possible that some may view access to linguistic inclusion as a sign of shifting priorities in Oregon's education system. This is partially true insofar as there is a shift towards recognizing a wider range of student achievement. However, reducing the role or presence of English in Oregon schools and society is neither an intent nor an effect of the law. Oregon has no official state language, but English is spoken by a large majority of its residents and is the principal language of business, government, and instruction. Next, please. This slide deck is one of several resources available to help explain access to linguistic inclusion. You can consult the linked resources on this slide to learn more. Thank you for your attention. We hope these slides have helped increase your understanding of access to linguistic inclusion. Please contact both myself and Ben Wolcott at ODE to continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Tina, Ben, thank you so much for the presentation. It's just such a great opportunity for more students to earn credits. So that's fantastic. And then it looked like there was a couple questions in the chat. Was there anything that you wanted to address before you need to head out?
Yeah, if we have time, I can answer some of these questions. Tina and I can both answer some of these questions in the chat.
Yeah, I'd also offer anybody to contact either Ben or Tina, both Ben and Tina, if there's any questions as well.
Yeah, so the last question is the easiest, and that is where can we access these slides? They can be found, they and all the other resources that we mentioned can be found on the English Language Arts page under the Access to Linguistic Inclusion pull down, and I believe Tina is pasting that right now. Beautiful timing. So you can see an exact copy of the slides that we just showed you, and the scripts for the slides are in that slide deck. So all of the information that we just gave you is publicly available, and you can access that as you desire. Now, Beth, I'm going to be looking to you regularly to make sure that we don't exceed our allotted time. But if we do have time, then I can answer some of these questions in the chat.
We got about 3 minutes, Ben, if you want to try to address something.
Okay. So question 1, does a Spanish language arts class count toward the 4 years of language arts for a student to earn a Oregon high school diploma? The short answer is yes. That is, Access to Linguistic Inclusion redefined language arts to include reading, writing, and communications in any language. So a Spanish language arts class that is designed to cover Oregon's adopted language arts standards does count towards the diploma requirements for credits in language arts. Follow-up question, or the next question in line, would the world language student earn both ELA and world language credit in a single class? This is a reference to a hypothetical example that I believe I gave in the middle of the slides. So the more general question is it possible for a single student to earn 2 credits for just one course? The answer is, again, the short answer is yes. The long answer is this would be pretty rare, as you would have to demonstrate that the same course covers both sets of standards. And remember that the rule for comparison here is if you're claiming that the course covers a set of standards for a given content area, you're saying that the student is getting a commensurate experience that their peers would get in a traditional course of that kind. So, for example, if you're saying that a student gets language arts credits in an advanced world language course, you're saying that student is doing just as much literature, composition, argumentation, just as much language arts work as a peer is doing in an English language arts course across the hall. So that's a pretty high bar to meet. But if a course is able to meet that bar, then yes, a student could earn both language arts and world language credits for a single course. Okay. The last question in chat: Oregon no longer requires 4 years of ELA for high school graduation. So the Oregon revised statutes outlining graduation requirements now list those credits, those required credits for a high school diploma, as language arts credits. So those credits are now subject to the new definition in Access to Linguistic Inclusion. So yes, a student could conceivably meet that requirement with some combination of English language arts and language arts in another language. Okay, and Beth already answered the question in the chat. The law is already active. Everything we're telling you is became active this past January.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
We beat our 3-minute time limit.
Perfect. That's great. Ben, Tina, thank you again for being with us today. I know you both have to run, but appreciate your time. And if anybody has questions, we'll provide Ben and Tina's email addresses for you to reach out to them with anything additional. So thank you for your time. Super appreciate it.
Thank you. I would just make a quick plug for the statewide webinar engagements too. Those are, Ben mentioned that at the top of the presentation. Those will provide some of the same overview, but will go into much more depth. So those would be a good opportunity also. Thank you so much for your time.
Bye, thank you. All right, everyone, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jim Taylor, to liven us up a bit and share some new resources with you. So Jim, you want to take it away?
Good morning, friends. I figure since I've seen you 8 times this year, I can call you friends now. It's good to see you. I would like to share about some of the Career Connect. Can everybody hear me okay? I don't see smiles on your faces. Come on now. There we go. Okay, there we go. Some of the career connected learning things that are taking place. This is just, we're going to share 2 with you. A little bit about U-Science. You've heard about a great update to share with you on that at the tail end of this presentation. But I want to start with a video. And, oh, wait, I gotta remember to do my sequencing right. Oh, I have to talk to myself as I do this. Here we go. I got to do that. And then I'm going to share. And I'm going to choose that screen. And I'm going to look for a couple thumbs up as soon as I hit play that you can hear and see it.
We always need inspired teachers. you can't have enough, in my opinion. Teaching is an interesting job where if you don't like it, especially at the high school level, like your students know. Teaching is not like a 9-to-5 job. You don't just leave it at the door. You can't. If you're emotionally invested in your students, you sometimes lose sleep over it. You worry about them like you would worry about your family. I went to high school here. I couldn't wait to get out of here. I graduated in a year where education, a lot of things were unknown at that time. I took the medical field route, but I really looked up to and was inspired by my teachers, and I wanted to do that for my community and my students as well.
What, Jim? Don't stop there. There's another 2.5 minutes of that good stuff. That's right. You've got to watch it on your own. So what I'd like to share with you is the Career Journey video series. We are just released last week, and it is going to feature my mom is calling. I love my mom. She taught for 28 years in Salem Kaiser. Okay, so talk to you really quick about this. CCL updates, that's me. What is career connected learning? It's where we engage all students all the time in how their academics and their activities are related to how they can get ready for career in college. Here's our definition. It's in a slide deck that you can look at. And that's our graphic. That's kind of an overview graphic. There is a link in this slide deck for you all to get to a shared resource folder. If you would like to use that, you may. If you'd like to use it for resource or for conversation, you may. It's also available in Spanish language. This is an umbrella designed by Southern Oregon, a partner school district in our work, ESD in our work, as another way to represent career-connected learning, awareness, exploration, preparation, training with work-based learning, mostly found in preparation and training. With the career journey videos, when we go back to the research and the work groups that got us to this point where we're investing quite a few $1 million in career-connected learning across the state, they said it's essential for career connected learning to be effective that you create a culture of it in your environments, that you engage students. So it's not just an activity, but what they're involved in is truly engaging and drawing them in. But you also consider the educator experience in the process. And we use the word educator, but we mean all practitioners, all adults that are in the building, every person that's in the room. And then you build relationships, adult to adult, adult to student, in terms of that conversation that you're having with kids. And even more importantly, in career connected learning, in building relationships with parents and communities and business and industry that are going to be there to kind of do those wraparound supports for those career experiences. So we really think that Career Journey videos is fitting all of those categories. In addition, it hits all those big highlights, right? We're creating industry partnership. We're really getting involved with our parents. We're sharing resources they can watch at home with their kiddos and have conversations about. We're trying to fill those gaps that exist in terms of resource. We're giving kids that hope for the future. These videos are designed with a real specific intent, and you'll see it very soon. And accessibility and equity in everybody has access to this, and we're creating multiple language resources to support it. So again, this is part of our projects, pilots, and partnerships investments. Big one that's going to come out in September, just to give you a plant the seed, is the Career Connected Learning Resource Hub. One of our first big projects that'll be present on there will be the Career Journey videos. Okay, what are the Career Journey videos as they exist right now? They are 10 profile, anywhere from 3.5 minutes to 5 minutes, 10 profile videos. And there are 10 going deeper, extended learning, have the kid do work asynchronously, have these deeper choose your own pathway within your classroom, Q&A videos where a middle school student has interviewed our profilees, and we have this extended up to 20 minutes of really getting deep in their experience, and lesson plans to support anybody that wants to engage in the process. So what is the experience we're trying to share with the folks that are in the series? It's an Oregon story. These are all young persons, and I say young persons because I've surpassed, I got an AARP mailing the other day. I'm just saying, I don't look like AARP yet, do I? Please, hello. So that might be why my mom's calling. So we want this near peer relationship to come about with our students, right? So we want a middle school kid, a high school kid to see somebody that's within that 10 to 15 year range. They don't want Jim coming in going, hey, I'm over a certain age, I'm getting AARP mailings, and you should really go become a teacher. You should really go get involved in construction. You should think about cosmetology. You should think about culinary arts, right? They're going to be more engaged with somebody who's closer to their age. And so this near peer effect, right? The other thing, we want them to see themselves in these. I get so excited about this. I'm sorry. Beth's just going to have to like tamp it down. Sign. Roberto, I can see you, so you can give me some signals. We want the kids to see themselves, right? We want them to see that. I worked at Claggett Creek. Amazing rainbow of human beings in my classroom. It doesn't make sense for me to bring in my college roommate, Brian, white dude who works at the Heathman Hotel in Portland, right? No, I've got to bring in folks that look like the kids in the room. And so when we started to have these engaging interactions with folks from all over our community that are in there and involved with the kiddos, that's when the kids took fire to this whole idea of, I can see myself doing this career down the road. So that's our goal with this. These 10 people, beautiful rainbow. In addition, from all over the state, not just the corridor, we're getting this highlight of people that are working in all the regions around the state. So, it's so good. I hope you enjoy it when you get into it and dive into it. So, see the stories here. What I'm going to do is just do a real quick walkthrough. I know half of you are already in the website. You're there. Am I still sharing screen? Sweet. Okay, so here's the website. We pop open the website. We get to see an introductory video. We scroll down. We can pop on a link and go and see the stories. And this is just a scrolling adventure. Every journey is different. Here's our 10 human beings. You can see what I'm talking about. Beautiful, beautiful people in their 20s to early 30s. Okay, Oregon at work. We've got a map here. And we're going to see at, whoa, right there. Okay, you can tell I was really engaging middle school educator, right? Okay, so we're going to have these dots start popping and populating all over the state. We've got people up in the Northeast region being filmed, right, and recorded in video down more on the southern part of the corridor of I-5. Okay, so this very intentional effort to get these to pop from all across the state, and then ways for you to get in contact with us. All right, so really quickly, I'm going to share with you an introductory video. We got audio?
Opening students' eyes to career opportunities is now easier thanks to the Career Journeys video series. Created through a collaboration between the Oregon Department of Education, the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communication, and the Journalistic Learning Initiative.
I hope that the community.
You've got to watch this guy's video. He's a dreamer, right? He's a dreamer. He could not get a college scholarship because he was a dreamer, right? And you get to hear his story when you dive deep in the Q&A about how somebody entered into his life and heard his story and supported him and provided him with a career pathway opportunity by paying cash money for his scholarship to go to college so he could be the thing and the person that he wants to be. There's so many, like if you don't cry at least one of every two of these, I'll be amazed. And this is not how you present videos to a classroom. I am not modeling good educational behavior here. So
that I'm not just their provider. I came from the community they are in. I know their struggles, and to just realize that if I can make it, they can too.
Whether you're an educator, librarian, counselor, or advisor, the series gives you and the students you serve easily accessible explorations of achievable career pathways.
For my students to leave here.
Okay, so you get the idea that this is an introductory video. It's a great way for you to share the series across to other people. And it just gives a layout of what the concept is. So that's the introductory video at the top. I would like to check in with you on a couple of things. First, any questions, anybody? Beth, it's like Oregon Connections, except that it's the storytelling of the person that's in the profile. Oregon Connections is much more deeply engaged in what the person who's sharing with the students, the industry that they're sitting in, the actual business that they're in. So yes, and we have partners that are putting all of them together. They're using Oregon Connections and this to create some seamless engagement with that. What was the next? Are there stuff? Oh, yes, there are. Okay, so let's go back to the web page. All right, and let's go see a story. Let's pick Olivia. We're going to see Olivia's story, and we open up Olivia's story. So every person gets a page,
Jim,
and
you want to
here's
share
the
screen
link to her
again?
video. Oh, shoot, I'm not. Thank you, Beth. That's why we're such good collaborators. You don't let me flounder there for too long. All right, so on the web page, I'm going to go back one notch. On the web page, scrolling through, and I'm at this place where I can see people's stories. And I'm going to go to Olivia, and I'm going to hit Olivia's story, and I'm going to scroll through, and I can watch the video, and I get a little introduction about who she is and where she's located, her Q&A session, and I've got the lesson plan. So let's open up a lesson plan, and we can walk through. And these have been highly vetted by multiple partners, and they try to create some scaffolding, and they try to create some layers, and they try to create lots of opportunity for deep conversation with kiddos. You've got our objectives. They're thinking about, there's our links to resources. One of the next big development sections is a educator guidebook, which will provide additional resources to help folks with a deeper dive, especially if you want to include it in a career or an advisory period. We've got our lesson plan that's built around the short video, and we have our lesson plan that's built around the long video. So we have lots and lots of detail and supports there. All of those are available in Spanish, and they are all going to be available in Russian, Chinese, and Vietnamese very soon. And we're working on additional languages as requested by districts and regions so we can support the students in your area. So if that comes up, don't hesitate, contact me, let me know. And it takes about a week to a week and a half to get those converted and wrapped around into new language. So
Jim, can I ask a question?
Yeah, jump in there.
So how many professions or people are you hoping to be able to present eventually?
Okay, so we're investing in 20 more. So by September, we're going to have 30. And we are connecting a bunch of pieces. We're taking data from UScience, where Southern Oregon's a great example. They have a combination of need in health sciences and education. So their students' aptitudes score high in health science and education. They have a sector strategy need, a workforce investment board need for folks in education and health sciences. Therefore, Jessica was selected because in her region, she fits both of those niches, right? Education and health sciences. And in her Q&A, they go deep in both aspects of that career path for her. We are taking our next 20. We're looking at our regions. We want to make sure we have dots all over the state. We're looking at our demographics of our persons on screen. We're making sure that rainbow is very present for our students. And we're talking to UScience data, and we're talking to workforce data, and we're connecting all those things together so that who is picked with great intentionality. And that's right where I turn into you all. And I ask Beth to please put in the chat the link to the Telling Their Stories form, please, if it hasn't been done already. And I'll see if I can get there first. It's a competition. Does that answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. We specifically know that there is a need. I'm going to watch all the heads, nods, or thumbs come up, or stars or hearts, right? There is a need for comprehensive counselors in schools, which means we've got to get those kiddos in middle school and high school thinking about that. We have a need for mental health experts in all ways, shapes, and forms across our state and nation. Thumbs up, head, right? Hearts and stars and fireworks. We are asking you right now to get into this form and populate it with people that you know in that 20s to 30s range, that near peer effect. Think about our rainbow of our kiddos. Who do you know? Who can you send this form to say, who do you know? So we can find that person to feature in one of our videos, so that we can get a counselor on the screen, so that we can get a mental health specialist on the screen, right? Or somebody that carries duality of all. Yeah, I know duality. I know dual diagnosis. I'm into all this stuff, right? So getting those folks in there that we can really demonstrate a career pathway for kiddo, because we know that kids enter into these experiences either by exposure, right? Or a life experience later on that gets them into a career. So we want to expose them to career that hopefully will also line up with aptitude, and we can get them on a really strong path into a promising future in a career that fills them and also is rewarding in their community. Okay, so please send us some recommendations. I wish I had Starbucks cards I could give to everybody that fills one out in the next 25 minutes, but I don't. Gosh, how am I doing on time? Am I pretty close, Beth? Okay, so.
Okay, got about 8 more minutes.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, let's just, I want to ask the question really quick, flash round. Where might you use these videos? Who do you think you might share these with? Where do you think people could use these in the classroom? Will you just share aloud for me, please? Or throw it in the chat? But loud is better. I like noise. Homerooms. I see homerooms.
Yeah, we've got homeroom time set aside for kids. That's perfect for that.
Awesome. Advisories, I see. Thank you. Okay, I got an idea. Every classroom, every single classroom. Watch Olivia's story. It's all about math. She discovered engineering through her math class. She talks about it. She connects it. They show her doing geometry in her work at her workplace. They also show her leading a team of 5 big dudes in carpentry. She's the manager and operator of that business, right? In her young 20s. It's so cool. There's so many cool stories in there, right? Science, go to the dentistry one. Automotive classes can look at the auto technician, right? But we really believe and we really hope that we start to see this cultural shift that all of these things can take place in all places, right? Okay, also, we want to get these out to you right now because we know there's a lot of teacher absence issues and sub issues. How's about you get this to your front office staff that works with your substitutes? And if the teacher calls and like, I'm too sick to do the thing to get the lesson plan in, here's your lesson plans for the day. They're all done. Anybody can walk in, open the lesson plan, and boom, go with the classroom full of kids. So we're also trying to create resource that's multidimensional and can be infused into all of the elements that are happening. So we hope you'll think about those things. When you have things come up, share them with us so we can share them out with folks. Help us find that awesome school counselor and that amazing mental health professional that's out there in the world. I'd recommend my therapist, Bob, but he's in his 60s, you know, and he's from the Bronx, so it doesn't really fit the near peer situation. All right, so excited, so jazzed. Want to share something really, really cool with you. So I've shared U-Science with you before. Here's an update. All right, when I first started talking about this, we had 20, I think I first talked to you about it in the fall or maybe the spring last year. And we had 26 schools in a pilot project. We are at 187 schools in less than 18 months that have implemented U-Science in their programs. We went from 26 middle schools. We're now at 50 middle schools and 110 high schools. And U-Science, we had a bunch of charter schools and private schools and youth and detention facilities that called and said, hey, can we use it too? And U-Science just went ahead and said, yeah, we got you covered. So we've got 187 schools involved. We had paid for an expansion up to 180 schools. We're at 187. We had a conference last week, Career Technical Education Conference. U-Science was there. The energy around U-Science was so strong. U-Science said, any school that does these 3 things, we will include them in the next 2 years of expansion funding. So if we get 25, 50, or 100 new schools, your schools, your districts benefit from the fact that they don't have to pay that U-Science fee for 2 years. If it's a high school, that's $3 grand a year, that's $6,000. If it's a middle school, that's $2 grand a year, that's $4,000. What to do to access this resource? And again, this is aptitude-based, not interest-based. It takes some time. We know that the schools who are taking some time for some really rich implementation are having huge rewards. Henley High School, Jessica West, where you saw that. What has happened since they did middle school and high school? A couple of success stories. 200% increase in requests for CTE classes. They got a CTE revitalization grant because they're going to bring back their manufacturing program of study. They're adding a digital arts and media program of study. They're adding an education program of study. They have waiting lists for every CTE class. They have increased enrollment in their science and math classes because it relates to the different programs of study that they have, and kids are more engaged in career pathways. The 12 seniors that they thought were not going to graduate, first day of class, September 2021, 12 kids, tier 3 on a list, not going to graduate. U-Science the first week of school. Serious conversation with counselors, parents, and teachers the second week of school. All those kids are on a graduation pathway. All those kids are in full attendance. Those kids are not having discipline issues. They've taken this and they've used it as a conversation centerpiece for what they're doing. and it's having great effect. We have middle schools who are adding career exploration programs. We have schools adding FTE at Brookings Harbor because they have so many kids wanting to take CTE classes now. They've got to put teachers in front of them to fill those needs. We're coming up with digital curriculum supports to help schools in remote, rural, and frontier regions where they have kids with aptitudes and they want to take something and learn about something. How can we put that in front of them with the teacher and support at their school, and they have access to some curriculum to get down and explore some CTE pathways? So readiness form, it's a simple 3-step process. If you, your school, your district want to get involved, contact me. I love to talk about this stuff. 3 things: readiness form to use science June 15th. Okay. Active implementation plan to ODE by August 25th. That means you and your crew have talked about it. You've got a plan, right? And then the brain games by September 30th. If you hit those 3 benchmarks, you've got 2 years of funding for U Science in your school, in your district through September 2024. So quick glance at some data. You get reports like this, where you can see this is High Desert, all of their middle school and high school kiddos. Where are their aptitudes? Their aptitudes are in art and media, ag and natural resources, law and public safety, computer tech, human services. Color coded, you can see they can look at how are we staffing those areas? How are we putting those into career exploration in our middle schools, right? Based on what kids have natural skill in, all right? So that tomorrow afternoon, there's a nuts and bolts. If you want to jump right into a meeting, there's a nuts and bolts tomorrow afternoon. That's repeated next Thursday. So give yourself 7 days to get some people together, sign up. The registration link, I hope that Beth will throw that in there. I think it's in one of my slides, and I'll get it in right after I'm done talking. There's a great how to implement. We've got 5 leaders around the state that have done deep implementation. They're going to be there to share with you their plans. You have access to everything that people have done. You can have access to it. And then May 12th, if you have administration, you want to get deep into conversation and talk about paradigm shifts, about how we approach career exploration and awareness, and how we can use aptitude instead of interest, or aptitude along with interest, in helping our students make career choices and academic choices, come to May 12th. It's an absolutely extraordinary conversation with Jerry Peacock out of Malheur, talking about the need for paradigm shifts and how we approach supporting our students in career exploration. I think I came close to being on time. Whew. Questions? I wasn't yelling. I'm just excited. I hope you all know that. Okay, we're going to put a document in there that gives you access to everything I just talked about, including those links. I think that's what Beth just put in.
Tim, yeah, I just put in the link to the office hours, Thursday office hours. Jim mentioned if you attend the April 21st or April 28th, you'll be able to register any of your schools that are interested. You just need to identify an ambassador from that school that will kind of lead the work at that school. Jim, is that what you're going to say?
That's perfect. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's two other
in communication with me. You can also just communicate with me. If you can't get to those meetings, communicate with me and we'll hook you up with all the right people. Yep. But what Beth just said is so important. Someone's got to be in love with this idea of, right, you have to have somebody with that passion point to dive in on the front end, and boom. Once the adults in the building have been taking it and they look at their own results and they think about, how can I have this conversation with a kiddo now? Off it goes. Sorry, Beth, stepped on you.
Oh, no, you're good. I was going to say the other 2 office hours, May 5th, and then there is a
May 12th.
What's the other one? May
12th.
Yeah,
Yep.
those are a bit deeper dives, and those are optional.
Yep.
But the April 21st or the April 28th date is to just to start to fill out the readiness form and develop an implementation plan. And that's just really the implementation plan is how is it going to happen in your school or schools. And
I see Diane's hand.
Is there hand? Oh, Diane. Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering, how do you get access for staff to actually take the aptitude and assessments and interest inventory?
Okay, so to go to the nuts and bolts, and in that moment, U-Science will actually assign you codes right as you're there. The easiest way, if you or you have a list of folks, name and email, shoot it to me, and boom, we'll have it to you in a matter of hours. So yeah, if that's the step you want to take, is like some exploration for yourselves first, email to me names of the adults, and they'll give you as many as you want. U-Science will also give them to your kids. And we've had a lot of administrators and educators In fact, at ODE, we had 18 folks try it in this early research stage, and we probably ended up with almost 30 kiddos, you know, nieces, nephews, and the children of faculty and staff at ODE that took it with their kids. So if you have kids that want to do it, and you can do a side-by-side with a kiddo of your own, niece, nephew, let us know. I'll put my email in the Dropbox here.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, we've been administering it to juniors, but through the SCORE platform, through the college and career, you know, platform. But it's, you know, we're working on using it a little bit more robustly. But I'm wondering, according to kind of what you've done, when do you recommend getting, if we got an assessment in middle school, when do you again recommend an assessment in high school? And
So
are they a little bit different?
They are.
Okay.
Yep. So it's 6 categories as a middle schooler. Takes about 45 minutes to fully take the brain games. Right?
That's much better, because the high school level is pretty lengthy.
It is. It takes up to 90 minutes at the high school level, and you want to split that up into 2 or 3 sections. And there isn't a big shift in, Diane, there isn't a big shift in aptitude. There's a big shift in what you get back as a report and what your aptitudes are. So you go from 6, which are 5 aptitudes and interest at middle school, to 11 aptitudes and interest at high school, to up to, once you're in and you've done all the high school stuff, they can actually take 5 more aptitudes and go deeper. And the aptitudes don't change. The aptitudes have been shown through research. They only shift 2% between 7th grade and adulthood, like in your 20s. And so that's not a big shift. It's how much information you give them and in what patterns. So what we're seeing is 7th grade, take the middle school, 6. 9th grade, take the high school, 12. 11th grade, add the extra 5. Now you've got 16 plus that you can look at aptitudes alone and have conversations about it. Takes them deeper into that college and career preparation stage.
My other really quick question is, when you were looking for youth or younger adults for your know, video, what was the age range again? I have a 28-year-old who I was thinking of.
Perfect. Absolutely. Perfect.
What's your kind of like your ceiling there?
We've been really fortunate. So far we've kept people kind of in that under 35 range.
Okay.
That's been great, but give us the best candidates. Yeah, we're gonna, you know, because I say, hey, I have AARP, and you're like, you're so youthful, Jim. That's not even possible. You know, I can come off as 49 easily.
Yeah, right? I'm there with you. I've been an AARP for a few.
Hey, Diane, the other thing with SCORE, the other thing with SCORE, and folks that have SCORE, is that your kids get access to science. That's all SCORE, but you don't get the reports.
No, and so
all you have to do is sign up. They'll convert you in this pilot project. They'll take your SCORE. They'll take all your kids. You don't have to do anything new. They'll cluster all your reports, so we'll get you right in and get all your reports for you. So now you're just enhancing. You don't have to start anything new. We're just going to enhance what you have already.
So science can work with SCORE, and then so that we can actually look at our reports
you got it.
differently. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Roberto, yes, please keep them coming. I'll figure out that Starbucks card. Lots and lots of good candidates out there.
All right, Jim. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful spring. Yeah, it's so good to see you again.
Excellent.
I apologize if I've elevated any anxieties with anybody with my presentation style, but love the work. Love you all. Take care.
Always love having Jim present. He always gets the room livened up. So thank you, Jim, for great information, great resources, and great partnership on making that happen for our state.
I'm going to interrupt right now. I'm going to monitor chat. And if people want to send me these, so I'm getting names and emails right now, send them to me directly in chat. I'll keep monitoring. I'll get back and forth with you and we'll get it squared away. Thanks.
Perfect. And I have a colleague here, Amit, who's here to talk about the next topic that's on our agenda. And I'm going to let Amit introduce himself and his topic, which is high school civics 0.5 requirement, 0.5 credit requirement. So Amit, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So I'm on my phone, so I apologize. In between some professional development today down in Medford and Ashland. And we've been talking about the same thing I'm talking about with you is our new civics requirement. So I think Beth has shared with you the sort of document or the slide, the one pager that shows you the civics language, the new law, and the courses that would qualify currently for our civic standards. But basically, what we've done is the legislature passed a law that will require this year's 8th graders to have a pathway to a 0.5 civics credit before they graduate in 26. And so many schools already have a civics course. They might have a U.S. government course or AP U.S. government. They might have a standalone course just called Civics and Government. So those kind of courses would all qualify, and those can continue. If you have a school, though, that has civics inside of U.S. history, and so students were receiving credit in like U.S. History 1, they were also getting civics credit in that year-long course, that would need to change and have to be coded as a semester of civics and a semester of U.S. history would be like the easiest way to do that, although that creates some other issues, but that's the way some school districts are going, is just to split the course into 2 semester courses. Or you can, move your modern problems class or your current issues class into a civics course. Other people often have econ and civics together. So again, those would have to be separated into just an econ course and just a civics course. So like I was saying, the law did not change the total number of credits. It's still 3 social science credits for graduation. Students still have the 6 elective credits available to them. Civics just has to be the 0.5 standalone. And that course, whatever you decide to call the course, looking at that list of approved civics courses, it would just need to be taught to the standards that have been adopted by the state board. So that's sort of the second layer of this, is that we have 2 sets of standards out there right now for social science. There's the required 2018 standards, which most districts are using. And then because of the adoption of the 21 standards, the ethnic studies integrated social science standards, some districts have gone ahead and adopted those standards. And so either one you can use to get to our civic standards. There's actually a few more civic standards in the older version, and the 2018 version has 13 civic standards. The 2021 version has 11 standards. But if you're offering civics courses, it should be taught and assessed to those standards. So that's kind of the quick update. I don't know if there's any questions, comments, or concerns.
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay.
Amit, you had some really great prompt questions. Do you want me to put them in the chat and see?
Sure.
Okay, let me put them in. All right, so first question is, how do students currently earn civics credits? Is it a standalone course or within another course like U.S. history?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So it looks like North Clackamas has a standalone already, so really no change. Right, so that Econ Gov class will need to change a little bit, unless they're already coded separately. But if they're not coded separately, you'd want an Econ code on one semester and a Gov code on the other semester. And then both the Gov and AP Gov would work. It's AP US history that I think is going to catch some people by surprise. And so if you already offer AP Gov, that's great. The question then is, how are your non-AP students getting their government credit? So making sure that they have an option as well if they don't take AP Gov. Yep, it looks like Diane already has this requirement met. So in schools that haven't had, this kind of goes to that last question on the link there, schools that have not had traditionally a civics course, you might not have teacher expertise in how to teach a semester-long course for civics. So if that's the case, that you'd want the department, the social science department, to determine who might be teaching the class or what materials they'd be using to teach the class if they've never taught one before, and any kind of professional development or instructional materials identification that they'd want to do before you get the class going. Does the civics need to be in the title course? I don't think so. There's some that are just listed as government, which would be okay. But probably if it's a non-AP course, putting civics in the title will make it the easiest for the transcripting. Street law probably won't meet the requirement that Dan put in there. Yeah, so you'd probably want to call it something else, and that street law, depending on how it's taught, would really have some other issues that they're looking at too. And one of the reasons why the legislature wanted to take civics out of US history or out of current events type courses was to make sure that they could do not only the government part, sort of the laws, which Streetwell probably spends a lot of time on, but also then sort of how to engage civically as students prior to voting. There's a second law that helps explain that thinking that also passed the legislature for civics, but that won't take effect until the 26th, and that will be a redo of the civic standards. And those civic standards will shift much more towards like a civic engagement. And so that would be something pretty different from most street law courses without knowing exactly what's happening in your street law course. Can I ask one more question, Beth? Sort of off topic from civics?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just interested also in where financial literacy might be showing up in your high schools. People can put that in the chat, like where they think that might be taught. There are some standards for financial literacy as well. And you can also say it's not being taught. That might also be true. Okay, yeah, I see a little bit of an econ maybe. Yep, looking at it as a mathway is also a popular choice. Yeah, and CC&R, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's really helpful just in thinking about where financial literacy, like really important topic, whether it's FAFSA forms or student debt or credit card debt, or interest in cryptocurrency. I think there's a lot of really important learnings from financial literacy, but we just haven't really found a good spot to put it in. So just want to think more about that for us, about where students would actually access that that learning. So thank you for putting that in the chat.
Amit, as part of our career connected learning work, we're also trying to gather a bunch of resources for financial literacy. So that was a topic that came up in our kind of like needs and gaps that were identified around the state. And so we're kind of working with that with some work groups. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, let me know about that. I just met with the Secretary of Treasury's office yesterday. So there's a lot of sort of thinking about that from outside organizations, outside of ODE, that are really wanting to put stuff into teachers' hands, get people, young adults too, in college, just out of college, young families, just a whole bunch of need for financial literacy, from, like I said, saving for college to saving for retirement to buying your first house. There's just a lot of information there.
Yeah, and I would just highlight too for you all that in attending some of the graduation, there's been some different engagement sessions happening around the state. That was kind of one of the themes that was coming up from and talking with them, is that the financial literacy, there was parents, students, educators were saying, we really want to see and hear more about financial literacy included in schools and in education. So that was something that was elevated across. Well, Amit, do you have any other things that you want to share while you're with us?
No, I mean, no, I'm always happy to talk about any of our, ethnic studies or Holocaust genocide studies, travel history, shared history. So if your school ever needs some help on that, please feel free to reach out. Hopefully all your social science teachers at least are getting my newsletter. So Beth can help you connect with our newsletters as well. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, Amit's been doing a fantastic job with incorporating trauma-informed practices and social-emotional learning within his content area. And just really appreciate you, Amit, and your work that you're doing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Take care all.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Amit. All right. If anybody is interested in hearing more from Amit, I can get you in contact with him. And then I just was going to see Oregon School Counselor Association. Was there any updates that you all wanted to share? Sorry, we've had to adjust the schedule, the agenda for today, but want to give you an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, just a little bit, not a whole lot. Like the nuts and bolts of what's happening and how it pertains to maybe us is that we are finishing up. Well, we just did round 1 of our scholarship readings, and I'm learning about a lot of counselors out there who I don't know if they're part of the OSCA when I look through the list. And so I know Beth shared last year that there's 1,300 plus school counselors, but we only have like 350 active members. So it's just an interesting thing compared to other states. But we're doing that scholarship reading. The grants that some of you may have applied for are our small $500 grant. That the reading of the committees will be finishing up this weekend. So that way folks, whoever is selected can use that grant money to purchase whatever by the end of June, I think, because that's the tax year, right? And then, we've been doing the spring series. Teresa has been working a lot with me, and we decided, you know what, instead of having the spring in person or virtual for several hours, let's try, weekly. Let's try it because we're all busy and we all deserve our weekend. So let's try this. And so we've had some really wonderful, we had the ASCA National School Council of the Year, our Oregon School Council of the Year. And last year we learned, last night we learned about the Happy Teacher Educator or Happy Teacher Revolution. It's kind of a neat listening circle, small group type process for adults in the building. And so it was, it's always great to hear somebody learn something, gain a little bit of knowledge from everybody. And I think that's really it. That's all that I have on behalf of OSCA. Jean may have something, but I think we're kind of just all trying to finish out the school year because we know that it's a challenge and graduation's around the corner, but we're still, making things happen and hopefully awarding a scholarship, 3 scholarships and a grant soon.
That's fantastic. Jean, is there anything that you wanted to share today?
Thank you. I think we're going to continue moving on advocacy. I've been under the weather for a couple of weeks, and so Teresa and Roberto send out a message here pretty soon about trying to get in an early May advocacy meeting and move forward with thoughts about legislation for the next legislative session. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jean. And I just have one more announcement. There is Senate Bill 744, which is looking at the high school graduation requirements for Oregon. I think we've kind of heard from different presenters today around pieces of that. But in looking at the graduation requirements, there is a specific ask to hear from high school counselors. So if you have anybody that's interested in participating in that, I put it in the agenda, but it's going to be next Thursday, April 28th, and it's from 4 to 5 p.m. And I am just putting in here in the chat just a little information about it. And I will also put the hyperlink. Sorry, I just need to grab the link. It's not easy to just grab. Let me get that for you added. Just make sure it goes in. It's only putting in half of it. Sorry, just one sec. All right, in the chat is the registration. And so if you wouldn't mind, we would love to get as many high school counselors there as possible just to provide some input. And again, that's specifically for high school counselors who will kind of be able to talk to their experiences working with students and families and graduation requirements and course scheduling, things like that. So you'll be able to speak to that work that you do and that your colleagues do. And I think that's all that we have for announcements. Jim, again, mentioned about Jim, the registration deadline for U Science. We have the 2 different dates that you can attend office hours. So tomorrow or next Thursday to get any of your schools registered. Jim, was there any other dates, again, reminders and deadlines?
Yeah, thank you all for the enthusiasm. And Beth, when this closes, if you want to make me co-host, I'll stay on. I've got another 20 minutes if anybody wants to talk more. Will sent a great question. There's a decision-making document that was created when the pilot project first started that will give you kind of an idea of the time involved for staff, for students, for parents, for family. And you can go small or you can go big, like it's up to you. But that I think is a really good document for thinking about how you'd structure it. And then I'll change some of the dates so they're more accurate. So that's in there in the chat for you. And I've got to save the chat and get everybody lots of codes and do all that good stuff. So yes, did that answer the question?
Yeah, and just one other is please submit any near peer students that
yes, please.
Yes. We're trying to collect those now so that we can plan to reach out to them and get them involved in the recordings.
Diane has a hand up.
Oh, Diane. Yep.
I was just asking in terms of that session around talking about graduation requirements. Has there been any kind of discussion around just on the university level in Oregon around math requirements, given that the UC system has now changed their requirements around Algebra 2? And they're now entertaining other maths to qualify for the 3rd year of math to get into their university system?
Yeah, so that graduation discussion, there is some interest in topics that are coming up around that. That work is specifically happening with our math pathways work. And Mark Freed on my team is doing a lot of work around the state with that. And actually, he'd be great to maybe come and present at the next, I'll see if he can come next month to our presentation, but it's a really great opportunity. So that discussion is happening across levels. So post-secondary has been meeting with, so like Higher Education Coordinating Commission, and universities have been meeting with ODE to have discussions around that. So that's an ongoing conversation that's we've been having, but it's not necessarily in with the graduation. I mean, it's not something that they're presenting on. They're just trying to get more feedback from around the state right now at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions?
Beth, I had a question. I was trying to cut and paste this SB 744 thing with the Zoom, but I can't cut and paste it out of the chat. Did you send an email regarding that convening? And I just don't see it. Or is there a flyer or something that I can send to my counselors?
Yep, I am actually, I just got the communication this morning for the high school counselors invite that is going to go out through the listserv for school counseling programs. In the chat, there's the Zoom, you can see the Zoom meeting link registration link that I put in there. Let me put it in again. There's the Zoom link again. If you have any counselors that want to join, any high school counselors, please do. Again, that is next Thursday, April 28th from 4 to 5 p.m. And then it looks like the registration closes April 27th. So the day before at 5, and that's 5 p.m.
Yeah, for some reason, I'm trying to cut and paste your little statement. Is anyone else like the SB 744, like what it is? I can't cut and paste it.
I can't either. I've tried like multiple
I need
times.
that in an email so I can send it. Or like, I guess I could retype it as well, but
I couldn't at first either, but if you actually click in the message from Beth, rather than trying to highlight a whole bunch of stuff, if you just highlight the individual messages, then you can copy and paste, but you can't copy and paste anything in the chat either. I had that problem, but if I went in the little bubble and just highlighted it, I could copy that.
Jen, it's on the agenda that they sent out, and I copied and pasted it in our notes that I was taking.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Jess. Also,
Yeah.
so after this meeting, I'm also going to send out that information through our contacts for this group, in addition to the listserv. So you'll have that there as well. Great. Well, thank you all for being here today. Any questions, please reach out. Marquita, did you have something else?
Yeah, really quick. So the language access conversation, I feel like our presenter talked about a little bit of guidance when we're thinking about students who would qualify for that language access credit requirements. Where's that guidance and that wording of like, these are the types of students that we're expecting?
Just going back, looking through, here is there, let me grab this link real quick. So the link for that is here. They're also going to be providing some webinars that they'll update the website soon with. All the resources and links should be on there. And there's also an interest for their PowerPoint. So I'm going to ask if they would share that with us. But if you click on that web page in the chat right now, you'll be able to go, and there's a drop down for access to linguistic inclusion. And then there's resources there. It looks like there's a slide deck as well. Great. Well, thank you all for joining today. I super appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know the spring is a really busy time. So just thank you for your time and being here and your great questions. And we'll see you next month. And please reach out if you have any questions or are needing anything. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you, Jean.
Beth, I'm going to need you to save chat because that function's turned off on my.
Sure.
Thanks.